We're in a new month. It's June. It is June. Standing in your power. You can feel it, right? You can feel it gathering. It's like this is going to be a really good month. Standing in your power. And today's talk is Spirit as Powerful You. Spirit as Powerful You. And so what I wanted to do is I want to begin with this very, very popular quote of Marianne Williamson's. I know you're probably all familiar with it. You've probably read it a gazillion times, but I want to start there anyway, because I think it's just one of the most beautiful quotes about really the truth of who we are. She said, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people will not feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others." That is one of the most brilliant and powerful statements about spiritual power that I can think of. And so I read it every now and then. I have it up in my wall, and I read it occasionally just to remind myself what the truth is. So how are you feeling this morning, children of God? Yes, thank you. How are you feeling? Everybody okay? Feeling that spiritual power? I love that quote. I just love it because it speaks truth to us. It speaks truth about us. It reminds us who and whose we are. We are the outpicturing of spirit. We are having an experience of being a human, but we are the offspring of the divine. The power of spirit is our very nature. We are that spiritual power in form. And we come here into life, we choose form to actualize the very life of spirit and to have those experiences, to be that, to be the full presence of spirit in a body. And you know, we know it on some level. We know it. We certainly knew it when we were babies, right? We knew it when we were children. Remember when we could do anything? When we were little, you could draw, you could paint, you could probably fly. You could do anything when you were a child. Do you remember those days? You were so multi-talented. There was nothing you couldn't do. Nothing. We know this when we were children. I remember that story about, remember the story about the mom who's watching her child, draw, and he's got paper and he's got crayons and he's drawing, and she said, "Oh, that's darling. What are you drawing a picture of?" And he said, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And she said, "Oh, honey, that's really nice, but nobody knows what God looks like." And he said, "Well, they will when I'm done." It's like we're positive when we're kids. We know the truth. We know our power. We know our connection. The sky is the limit. The sky is the limit when we're children. We're big, brains, and we're connected so closely with that universal mind, and we don't doubt it, and it just flows through us, right, into being. I remember when my oldest son, Adrian, was in preschool. He was about 3.5, I guess. And, he's having breakfast, and we're sitting together, and he's eating his Cheerios, and he looks over at me, and he said, "Mom, what are negative numbers?" And I looked at him, and I smiled, and I thought to myself, "Are you Buddha?" But as a mom, it just floored me, and I said, well, what do you think they are? There's a good mom response, right? Well, what do you think they are? And he said, "Well, I think that if you start with 0 and you subtract a number from it, that the answer is going to be a negative number." And I said, that's true. I'm having this conversation with a 3-year-old. And I said, yes, that's true. And he said, but what does that mean? What does that mean? And so I went, let me think about this. And then I got the backyard thermometer. And I said, see, when it gets really, really warm outside, see the numbers go up. But when it gets really, really cold outside, of course not in San Diego, but in other parts of the country, when it gets really, really cold and it goes below 0, see these numbers in red, these are negative numbers. And he was like, oh, okay, I get it. And he had that perfect understanding. He had the practical application. Well, all children are like that. They're all big question marks, right? They're all connected to the source, and we know our connection. And as children, we think big, we believe big. We have huge visions of who we are and what our life is. And we live like anything is possible, because anything is. Excuse me. And then we start growing, and then we start listening to the voice of the world. And then we start listening to the critical parent, or the condemning adult, or the negative boss, or whoever that person is in your life, or whoever those people were in your life, those negative Nellies that are always so quick to let you know how it won't work, and how you're not good enough or smart enough, or you don't have the right degrees, or you don't have the right height. Somebody told me I was not tall enough to be a minister like 5 years ago. I loved it. You're not tall enough. This is true, really. Oh my God, okay, whatever. But there are plenty of world voices that are going to tell you things like that. And as children, of course, we believe them, because these are the big people in our lives, and they must know. They must know. So we hear about our timing is not right, or our education is not right, or our talents are not in alignment with our desires, or whatever. It goes on and on and on, right? And we start to believe it. We start to believe it. We buy into that I'm not good enough paradigm. And we forget that child that we are, that can do anything. And we begin to listen, we begin to believe the voice of the world. And when we start believing the voice of the world, we start protecting ourselves from it. We start to build those little walls around ourselves. And so not only does it not let the hurt in, but it doesn't let the power out. And that's really our big challenge. As we are trying to protect ourselves from the voice of the world, we can't let anything in because it's hurtful. We can't let anything out either. So all that stuff that we knew to be true of us as children, it simply gets walled off. Does that make sense? It's hard to believe, like Marianne Williamson said, that we're beautiful and talented and gorgeous and fabulous. And I know that quote is misquoted, and people seem to think that Nelson Mandela said it. I know you've seen it by, in posters and things, and they attribute it to Nelson Mandela. I honestly can't see Nelson Mandela saying beautiful, talented, and fabulous. I don't know why, but it was Marianne Williamson. Anyway, so we forget those things, and as we grow, we attempt to reclaim some of that power, but we try to reclaim it from the outside world. We try to find it in our outside world, to grasp something outside of ourselves that can make us, quote unquote, make us feel powerful. We try to exert control over things, over people, places, and things around us, because we no longer feel that inner power, that spiritual power that we know that we are. We keep trying to recapture those feelings of invincibility and power, and we do it in ways where we exert control over things. We get on that treadmill of ambition. We get, all the raise after the raise after the raise. We try to get to be the best in our field. We want to boss people around. We want to exert control over the conditions of our lives. We change things all around us, people, places, and things all around us, to make us feel in control and to make us feel more powerful. because we no longer feel it from inside, because we're not feeling that spiritual power inside, and we're not connected with it anymore. We're just not in touch with it. And so instead, we try to control all the stuff outside of ourselves so that we'll be safe, and so that we'll know we're powerful, and we'll know that we are in control. But that is not spiritual power. That's not what we're talking about today. That's not spiritual power. That's fear. That's all that is. That's just fear. We're just trying to control because we do feel so impotent, because we've lost touch with that spiritual power that we know we have all along within us. Ernest Holmes, in a radio talk in this thing called Life way back when, 1952, he said this, "And what are we going to find that is big enough to cover all our mistakes? Powerful enough to dissolve all of our difficulties, and constructive enough to set us safe and sane and happy on the pathway to freedom and joy in living. It's knowledge that there is a law for good greater than we are, and we can use it. But it's not enough to merely accept these great truths. We have to apply them. Let us then learn to light the candle of faith in our own soul and let it shine, not peering into the darkness and thinking how black it is, but rather thinking only of the light. So we shall come to live that light." So everything is within us. Everything is within us. And we come to a teaching like this and we remember. We remember. This is why we resonate with this kind of teaching. It's nothing new. It's nothing new to our soul. We're remembering. Oh, yes, I remember when. I remember when, as a child, this is the truth of me. I remember this. This is who I am. It's been there all along. It's been there all along. And so we are born in this spiritual truth. It is within us to know. And we shine that out when we're children, and probably in a lot of the most inappropriate times too, right? When you were told to be quiet, you were told to settle down, you were told not to be rude or whatever, when you're simply proclaiming your truth out loud and bold. And then you were told you were too loud. Anybody else? Shut up, you're too loud. Quiet down. We realize when we come to a teaching like this, we don't have to be quiet anymore. We can let our light shine. We know the truth of us. We know who we are. We know that spirit within us is the only truth that there is of us. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to get anything. We don't have to buy the latest self-help book. We don't have to find our power through a relationship or through another or through a job or through a location. We don't have to do that because it's already inside of us. We have to release what we've been given. We have to release what's in us and let it out. We have to break down those walls we ourselves built to protect ourselves. We have to break those down, and we have to let our little inner light shine out. We get back in touch with that thing that we knew was there all along. And we let it out. So instead of trying to get power, instead of trying to find power outside of ourselves, we start letting the spiritual power that we are, that is ours to use, we start to let that out. We let the flow out of us. It comes from the only place it can come, that spiritual center within us. And Holmes said this, he said, the center, I love this, the center is spirit in us, God in us, love attending to us, the faith by which we live. Here alone will be found the security, the love, the joy, the power we seek. Start then with the center. God in the midst of me approves of me. Okay, say that with me. God in the midst of me approves of me. Say it again. God in the midst of me approves of me. That is powerful, powerful statement of truth. God in the midst of me approves of me. I've got cards. I printed that up. I thought it was so fun. Oh, good. I printed that up. It was so fun. I loved it. God in the midst of me approves of me. If you want to hand them out, let's just pass them out all over the place. God, say it again. God in the midst of me approves of me. I forgot to cite the quote. It's Ernest Holmes, but you know that. You can write it down if you want. I just wished I had done that, but it's Ernest Holmes. God in the midst of me approves of me. Right here, right now, in whatever situation you find yourself. Always. It's been there all along. The presence of God is with us all along. We know this. We knew this as children. We forgot. We forgot because the voice of the world is so loud and obnoxious. And it tells you all kinds of things, and we buy into them because we're children, and we believe the big people in our lives. We must drop playing small, like Marianne Williamson said. We must, we must drop playing small. It doesn't serve us and it doesn't serve the world. The power that we are, the spiritual power that we are, get this, is not the power over things. It is not the power to exert over things or people or events, but it is spiritual power we bring to any situation in which we find ourselves. Do you feel the difference of that? It is our own spiritual power that we bring to any situation in which we find ourselves. So it's getting in touch with that power that we are. It's knowing we are that. I am. We are that. I am. The I am that we think of and the I am that we talk about and the I am that we attribute all those wonderful characteristics to. We are that I am. Right? I am that I am. So all of that spiritual power finds its way out of us into whatever situation we find ourselves. So if we are going to live that presence, if we are going to live the power, if we are going to be spirit as powerful us, how do we do that? How do we do that? Where do we start? How do we begin? This is a practical spirituality, so we need practical tools, right? I mean, it's just not enough to talk about this stuff. Like Ernest Holmes said, we have to apply it. We have to apply it. So the first thing we do is take responsibility. Ugh, I know, it's the R word. Nobody wants to talk about it. Take responsibility, not for things that we had no control over. Come on, I know, people do loveless things to each other. Children have sometimes horrible childhood. Stuff happens. I'm not talking about taking responsibility for the whole world. No, I did not start the Gulf War, so, the hell with the people. I'm talking about taking responsibility for our inner life, taking responsibility for our actions, taking responsibility for our experience of our lives. It's about taking responsibility for our experiences of our lives. How are we experiencing what is happening? What is happening? We are co-creating that experience with the divine. We are making a decision about how we are interpreting what has happened. We are not at the effect of the conditions. We are not the victim of events. We are co-creating our experiences. We are co-creating our interpretations of what's happening. And in doing so, then we get to choose. They said that old expression about, what you resist persists. What you accept, you can transform. See, there's the end to that. There's another line. And what you accept, you can transform. Because when we take responsibility for it, we are saying, I'm choosing my thoughts about this. And I can choose again. So we do that. We do that. We take control. We take responsibility of our experiences. And we change our thoughts, change our thinking, change our life. Hey, where have I heard that before? Second, we keep our own personal vision in front of us at all times. And if you're not sure of your vision, that's what this whole spiritual practice is about. Meditation, visioning, affirmations, things that you can practice to get really clear about your vision. And your vision's going to change. It changes as we accomplish goals. It'll change. There'll be a new vision. before you. There'll be a new goal. There'll be a new reason for being. So it's about not losing sight of that vision, keeping that vision high up in front of us, keeping that goal of our life's purpose up in front of us, and not dropping our head down and looking at all the obstacles that exist between here and there. We're not about looking at the obstacles. No more than a hurdle runner is, busy looking at the hurdles. They're not. They're looking at the end, right? They're looking at the goal line. They're looking at the tape. They're not looking at the hurdles they have to jump over. Same thing with us. Keeping our eye on the goal, keeping our head high. In The Inward Journey, Howard Thurman wrote, "In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." I love that. "That in fair weather or foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." That's what we do. That's what living in our spiritual power is about, keeping those moments in front of us, keeping our eyes high on the vision. What else? Third, spiritual power is demonstrated in moments of surrender. I know it sounds sort of weird, right? Like a contradiction. But our spiritual power is demonstrated most in those times of surrender. When we allow ourselves to stand in the gap, and not react, not react. That's when we're bringing our spiritual power to any condition in which we find ourselves. When we just don't react and we stand in our truth or the illusion or the condition or whatever it is. We stand boldly and firmly and say, there's a greater truth to be known here. That's our spiritual power. We decide not to react, but we know that there is a greater truth to be known in this situation, whatever the situation you find yourself, whether truth or illusion, whether conditions are positive or negative. It is spiritual power to be able to stand in anything and declare the truth. Any condition and declare the truth. That gap, that pause is when we surrender. And we were like, okay, not my way, but thy way. We'll just surrender in that moment, just to breathe and just to know, regardless of the conditions, there is a greater truth to be known. And spiritual power is found also in our beingness, and that's what we bring to any situation. It's not what we can do, it's who we are. Like in Marianne Williamson's quote about, and then when we are standing in our power, we give permission for those around us to shine. That's what we do. That's about our beingness. It's not about doing or not doing anything. It's not about rearranging conditions, but it's about standing in the truth. And that is the beingness of we bring our power into any situation in which we find ourselves, and it is that quiet, confident, firm stand in truth. That is the state of being. That is what precedes us. That is what changes things. And we do that from cause. We do that from first cause. And then affect changes around us as a result. And sometimes there's nothing to do, right? Sometimes there's nothing to do. I know sometimes when I'm reading the minister's listserv, I get like, oh, we're just such a wonderful group. And I just, and I'm thinking to myself, because something is just really, pushed my button. And then it's like, I know I need to get clear. This is my stuff. And then I pray on it, and then I accept it, and I bless it. And then sure enough, sometime down the road, there's another entry in the minister's listserv that says exactly what I would have said if I was, not healed. Anyway, what I know is sometimes it's about doing nothing, but just holding the light and knowing the truth and allowing the conditions to change around us. That's true spiritual power. Like Marianne Williamson said, we let our own light shine, and then we unconsciously give permission for others around us to do the same. And Ernest Holmes said this, "The way can be shown. but each individual must walk himself. We are so bound by the suggestion and hypnotized by the false belief and so entangled by the chaotic thinking of the world, thinking which is based on the principle of dual mind, that we become confused and are not ourselves. He goes on to say, wake up. Wake up. Your word is all powerful. Your consciousness is one with the omnipotent. Your thought is infinite. Your destiny is eternal. And your home is everlasting heaven. Realize the truth. I am living in a perfect universe. It always was perfect. It always will be perfect. There never was a mistake made. There are no mistakes being made, and there never will be. I live in the great and eternal universe of perfection, from cause to effect, from beginning to end. And the world is all right, and I know it. That's our spiritual power. That's our vision and our mission, to be that in the world, to allow that spiritual power to flow out of us, to shine from us, and transform the world around us because of our presence in it. That's who and what we are. Thank you so much. Thank you.